Hey guys, Dante here, and welcome back to my channel, The Burgos Art. And welcome back to another edition of the Toy Chest, where I show you old and new figurines of various designs that I've built. This one's actually in the newer category. So this is Cello. He is simply called that because he is a young man carrying a giant cello case on his back, a carrying case. He is actually part of my pack series. Now, some of you might remember the pack series when I introduced Good Boy here, who is not a good boy. He just pretends to be a good boy. Now, the pack series is, in short, a series of drawings I've done over the years of Transformer concepts. However, the difference is these are human or at least organic transformers, which are notoriously hard to create without making them look very weird and bulky. Animorphs tried to do it and didn't do it so well, but A for effort. Same people who did Beast Wars, in fact. And if you're a fan of the old Ghostbuster cartoon, you remember a few of their bizarre, haunted human transformers. The main thing is, I call this series the Pack because in order to compensate for the needed mass of a transformer, I usually include something on the person. In the case of Good Boy, he has this big old animal assist like vest that he wears with a little handle on top. Cello, of course, has his cello. So I'm going to do two things. First things first, if you wish to see how I did this, the behind the scenes, I'm going to start that in just a minute. And the second thing I'm going to do is give those who don't want to see it a way out. So right here is a timestamp of where to skip. Be aware, the how to do video is actually pretty short. It's more of a slideshow than an actual video. But once again, if you want to skip it, there it is. Okay, so skip to the video and then we'll come back to this guy in just a moment. So as with any project, you want to start with a strong base. In this case, I bought myself a relatively cheap Superman figurine of small stature. I also went ahead to make sure I had a solid stencil for the proportions of what the cello would eventually be. I want to use the stencil throughout the project to make sure everything ends up just the right size. From there, it was just a matter of building up the plastic. So I built up some walls with the sheets of plastic I have. These are styrene sheets of plastic. I also glued on this hard kind of straw tubing down the center to make a strong spine. Now, because this is a straw, it has a hollow inside, duh. And I was able to literally plug in some white ball joints. Well, not so much ball joints. They're hinges, like elbow joints or knee joints, but they just happen to be rounded for figurines. So I plugged those directly in. And then I took some pieces from a Connect playset, which is a building playset, which I find is very useful when you're trying to build things that spin or even slide. Connects are perfect for that. And I connected the Connects to the ball joint into the plastic spine, and I managed to connect the Connects. I'm saying connect way too many times, but I managed to connect them to this cool kind of claw that the Superman figurine came with. You know, it's a kind of grappling hook Superman claw, which was perfect for what the project needed. It's very rare I get to buy a figurine that also has accessories that fit the project. From there, it's a matter of continuing to build the frame. Okay, that's what we're focusing on right here, the shell and how it opens. The next piece was these miscellaneous pieces of clear plastic I had because I'm a bit of a pack rat. I hold on to any kind of grounded objects, clear tubing, Easter eggs in a big plastic bin I have. And I attach those to the main frame, once again using the clear plastic tubing, the rounded joints, and it made the base of the cello. And then from there, I connected some Revoltech double joints, double hinges, if you would, to some miscellaneous spider limbs from another knockoff toy, because knockoff toys are gold to me. And essentially, that creates the main body, which then all folds in perfectly into the shape of the cello. Now, for the transformation of Superman, some extra stuff had to be done. Essentially, I had to find a unique way to turn his feet into claws. I had a few different ideas in mind, but eventually I found these really small, tiny hinges from a knockoff Transformer figurine. This is like one of the original G1 figurines. Um, as well as these cheap hollowed foot Power Ranger, once again, knockoff figurines. So I essentially had hollow feet that I could attach all the mechanics into. I had to make some extra mechanics like these little pieces of miscellaneous plastic and screws. And then once I assemble them all together, Superman ends up standing next to his cello with these big old kind of honking transforming boots, which then open up and twist around to make all of the needed components. And that's what this whole thing is. It's just finding all the small little pieces you need that twist and turn. And this is the biggest problem I have with all my customizations. Trying to find small enough components, because you could buy hinges and ball joints. Bionicle ball joints are very good, but when you're doing really small stuff, you have to dig deep, or in this case even make it yourself from just messed up plastic. Styrene plastic is great for making basic hinges. Just two sheets with a little hole down the center with a screw in it, and now you got two flat pieces that could twist around. Here it is, all splayed out in bug mode. Nothing's glued together. Nothing's put together yet. And from here, the next step is normally the sculpting. I have the mechanics. Now it's time for the sculpting. So to help save time on sculpting, little found objects don't hurt. I have these motorcycle headlights from a small toy, and I just cut them and glue them into place, along with some resin castings I made of an old Dinobot toy. Dinobot from Beast Wars had little tiny dino feet, and I made some castings of his feet, and that's how I got the mandibles. Along with castings from, I can only assume is a Spawn figurine, or perhaps something from Todd McFarlane, that allowed me to get this great little creepy mouth. And you just go ahead and sculpt and slowly build up, and in my case, it's a matter of sculpting, closing the figurine, opening it again, sculpting, closing it, opening. You want to make sure everything fits inside, because in my case, I could tend to get carried away and I forget how one thing looks great, but when compared to the other thing, the sizes don't match, or it somehow ruins the transformation. It's a matter of getting involved in the project, but trying not to get lost in it. You have to go back and forth, because you can do this amazingly sculpted face, but then if it doesn't fit inside, you have to tear the whole thing out anyway. So, mechanics are done. Sculpting is ready to go. All the fine detailing that makes it look cool on top of the flat mechanics. And the next step is simply to prime it. You want to prime everything, because I made a mistake of not priming my last Transformer due to lack of time and supplies, and it is a pain to paint. I'm gonna now skip the painting process and go right to the final project. Sorry, I know some of you love the painting process, but I just cannot record myself and paint at the same time. It just never works. Anyway, enough jibber jabber of this part. Let's get to the fun part coming up next. Alright, so welcome back. Those of you who managed to stay for the video. And yes, this is Cello. Now, if you can't tell, he is extremely back heavy, which is why I have this little makeshift Lego stand holding him up. But let's get a bit of a closer look at him. Let's turn the light a bit. There we go. So, his arms are sculpted in place, but his head does have articulation. It wiggles, it waggles. It can turn and look at you menacingly from the distance. And when he looks at you from the distance, those who are behind him will get a bit of a shock, because he actually has two little alien eyes sticking out the back of his head. I like doing little things like this. Things like that. Things like these little fangs sticking out the bottom. I could have easily sculpted those into the frame, but I like the idea of them sticking out, because it's always little signs that something's not right. These little spiky bits sticking out from the back of his fuzzy boots. I like doing that. I think it's kind of like in Men in Black, where if you watch Men in Black, there's always a hint as to who's the alien and why. Now, articulation-wise, aside from the head that wiggles and waggles, he has leg articulation, legs go out, the knees bend, they rotate as well, and he has a rotating waist. Arms are sculpted in, as mentioned before, and that's pretty much it. He can stand kind of with the cello, if you really make him look like he's struggling with it, like he's like, oh god, which actually works. This is actually perfect. That's kind of the idea. He's meant to be this. If you look at the proportions, he's meant to be like, I don't know, 12 or so, compared to your average like 6 foot. I mean 6 foot, 6 inch tall like action figure. He actually is meant to be this young man. He's wearing like freaking little short shorts and short sleeves. His parents dress him in the morning and he hates it. Kind of like a Boy Scout look, but he's big. He's wearing his dad's old honking hiking boots, these massive boots. He has this awkwardness to him. You know, he's a redhead with a comb over, for crying out loud. And he can stand like that. Whoop. Well, if I put him on flat surface, that is. He was on a flat surface. There we go. And he stands like that. Like he's really struggling, but it works. It works so well. The back is just a giant cello case. I sculpted for the bridge, I believe it's called, or where the strings run down. I don't know instruments, but I sculpted a raised up piece here. Full disclosure, once this guy was primed, I freaking dropped him, and this entire latch right here fell off, so I had to re-glue it, and I lost some of the seamless connection, which is really a pain when you get to a point where everything's perfect and then something goes wrong. So enough jibber jabber, let's get into transformation. So first things first, you're gonna take that waistline and you're gonna rotate him. You see a little bit of paint scratching here. Now for this guy, I use airbrush paint, which is thin enough where it won't gunk up the joints. But for any transformation, any toy you're trying to make into a transformer, you're gonna get, sadly, lots of areas where the paint just scrapes into itself. But luckily this guy's held out pretty well. So anyway, once you rotate to have his butt sticking out the back, you're then gonna, at the knees, bend and rotate them as well. Do not try that at home, children. This is not a yoga pose you could pull off, I'll guarantee you. So now you have this funny little like squat. Looks like the cello has legs, right? You reach inside the boot and you pull out this. It's kind of a horned like claw that has human flat teeth. Because nothing's creepier than an animal with human teeth. And then from inside the boot, you pull out these pincers. As you notice, I also added a little bit of paint. So when he's transformed in human mode, this paint is on the inside of the legs and you don't really see them. But when it's in the crab mode, or this what I call the scorpion mode, then you see them. Little things like that help. You can hide paint in certain ways. He is essentially just on his on his chest. An ideal world, I'll be able to slide this frame right here downward, but I sadly could not get the mechanic to work. But hey, as they say, if every pork chop was perfect. Now, you're going to take the base of the cello frame and open it up on a nice hinge. Then you're going to have double ball joints, or rather double jointed sockets right here. And you're going to fold out these little external bits. And you've already exposed, ooh, the nasty boy himself, the scorpion face, or alien scorpion face. We're going to take the centerpiece all the way up to the top of the neck and rotate it all the way out upward, which exposes these pincers. We're going to rotate the pincers all the way around. And then we're going to essentially break the neck forward. Only goes at an angle. And then you take the pincers and they can actually open up. Now let's see if I could just do some finagling. And here you got Cello in his kind of alien scorpion mode. And I am actually very, very happy with the sculpting on this. Now at this angle, I just have the legs splayed out so you can see them all together. Normally, because of the sculpt of the body, you can bring these legs all the way down, like straight down, like table legs. And that'll be just enough where they can actually touch the floor, which works. But once again, because they're going straight down, you don't really see the connecting point. So yes, it stands like that. It actually stands quite well like that. because of just the way the body's sculpted in the bottom, it kind of sits at an angle. And there's our boy with his head sticking out. To quote YouTuber MGO, it is visible head syndrome, which tends to happen a lot in Transformers, but hey, what can you do? But for now, let's put the legs back in a splayed out position. He's like, woo, flying through the air, and he wants to show you what he could do. So, once again, thanks to the transformation, you have articulation where you can actually pinch these little claws all together. They can move up and down. You could, twist them around like that, and he could be like, hey, it's pointing at you, tapping the screen. And of course, you could twist. You could still, twist the waistline, which doesn't really do much. It just kind of like moves it side to side. Now, let's look at some of the details on this. First things first, I have the legs. So I sculpted these legs. You have a little connecting point right there, a little connecting point right here. And the legs extend all the way out. And, visually they connect with the extended little mandibles here. And I've also painted the inside of the cello shell to be like webbing. He has like this nasty kind of like webbing between his legs. He only has 2 feet, or two spidery legs, plus the claws. Tilt the back a little bit. So you have kind of crustacean-like shelling, like shingles, if you would, on his butt end. And then inside, where the tail starts, you have these kind of ribbing patterns, which continue to here as well. Turn this sideways so you can see it better. You have the massive pincer claw. You have fangs on the inside, spikes over here. You have some paint that spilled onto that. I'll fix that later. And then you have these spikes on top, which from the outside are black, because that way you don't see them when it's transformed. From the inside, they're white. And as you notice, you could spin them around, you could open and close them, you could once again tilt it forward. And piece de resistance, that beautiful mug. Look at that mug. He has 3 massive black bulbous eyes, which are a little bit out of focus. There we go. He has 3 massive black eyes. He has little tiny mandibles, little finger mandibles that stick out the bottom. He has human teeth, because once again, animals with human teeth are creepy. And he has some extra bone detailing around his skull. With the paint, I am going for mainly a purple motif for these monsters. But he has like soft pink here, all around the eye, around the bottom of the socket. Once again, in the webbing, this soft pink kind of just gives you that nasty, squishy sensation. And, yeah, he is not a happy person. He is a bad person. He's a bad boy. Let me rearrange some stuff, make him a bit more pretty for the camera. There we go. And that is pretty much the cello. Name notwithstanding, I am actually very happy with this figurine. I'm extremely happy, actually. I'm much like with Good Boy. I was able to fit as much of the transformation inside a small space as I wanted to. With good sculpting, I had to give and take a little bit. It's not perfectly smooth. As I said, I dropped it once, and it just kind of offset some of the pieces that come together. And in a perfect world, once again, this black frame right here, which covers the back of his butt end, in a perfect world, this would flip downward and at least cover the majority of the body. But who knows? Maybe with 3D printing and a return to this figurine in the future, I'll be able to, really work on that. But yeah. Now, if you want to see still images of this guy, I have it on. I'm going to be putting them on my DeviantArt, my Instagram, where you can also see the images of how I got to this point. Maybe put a few on Twitter. We'll see about that. And as always, you can follow me on all those areas in the description links down below. And last but not least, both of these guys will also be up on Transformer World 2005. That's TFW 2005. because even though it is meant to be more for, you know, Cybertron, Robot Transformers, they have a section for non-Transformers, and I like to stick these guys up there. And this is not the end of it, my friends. The pack will pertain a number of characters. The rest of them are humanoid. I have, as I mentioned before, sketchbooks after sketchbook after sketchbook of many of these characters. And they all have, you know, the similar setup where they have some kind of extended piece hanging off of them. And it is that extended piece that is essentially the parasite and the villain that turns them into these horrible creatures. And yes, I also have a good guy. She is meant to be the king of the crop, or queen of the crop, actually. So when I make her, she's gonna be a big showcase. But until then, we are dealing with just the ugly monsters, the ugly bad guys. So yes, that is Cello. And once again, guys, I am Dante. Like, favorite, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the future. Later.
If you liked this video, be sure to check out my other works on my YouTube channel, and also be sure to follow me on these social media websites, linked in the description down below.